What if a barefoot boy, with nothing but hope in his eyes, stopped a millionaire at a red light and asked the unthinkable, "Sir, may I help your daughter walk again?" This isn't a story about money or miracles. It's about a moment that changed everything, and it's all true. It was just another red light on a busy street in downtown Los Angeles. Richard Sullivan, a man of towering wealth and icy silence, sat behind the wheel of his luxury car. In the passenger seat, his 10-year-old daughter Emily stared quietly through the window, her legs lifeless, strapped into her wheelchair. Her accident had changed everything: her smile, her laughter, her future. And Richard, despite all his fortune, couldn't buy back what had been taken from her. As the seconds ticked by, a small figure emerged from between the cars. Dirty, barefoot, and no older than 11, Liam Carter moved toward the vehicle, hands trembling, expecting another window to roll up in disgust. But this time, something made him stop. He didn't beg. He didn't ask for food. He simply looked at the man and said, his voice soft but certain, "Sir, may I help your daughter walk again?" Richard stared at the boy, stunned, trying to process what he'd just heard. Emily turned to look at Liam. Her eyes, wide with fragile hope, met his. And for a moment, just a moment, the entire world seemed to hold its breath. Before we dive deeper, make sure you subscribe and turn on the bell. Stories like this don't come often. If you believe in unseen miracles, in the power of one choice to change everything, this is your place. Don't just watch. Be part of something that moves hearts. Liam Carter had no home, no parents, no bed. His world was the cracked pavement beneath his feet and the scraps he could find in alleyways. But behind his dirt-smudged face and torn clothes, there lived something unusual, a deep, unexplainable sense that he was meant for more. He didn't remember the last time someone hugged him. His mother, Carla, had disappeared into the haze of addiction when he was 6. She used to whisper in his ear, between episodes of rage and numbness, "You've got something in you, Liam, something good." He clung to those words like a lifeline, even when she was gone. Each night, Liam slept under the same rusted bridge, holding tight to a notebook filled with sketches and names, people he had met, people who were hurting. Next to their names, he'd scribble notes. Mrs. Downing, coughing blood. Old man near the bus stop, can't see well. He had no medicine, no training, but he believed somehow he could help. Sometimes, when he touched someone's hand, he felt warmth pulse through him. Once a dog with a wounded paw licked his fingers, and moments later it limped away, stronger. Coincidence, maybe. But Liam felt something deeper. He didn't understand it. He just knew. Pain called to him, and something inside responded. Most people crossed the street when they saw him coming. He was used to disgusted stares, to rejection, but it never made him bitter. Liam didn't ask for much, just a chance to matter. He dreamed of becoming a doctor one day, even if he didn't know how to spell half the words. In his imagination, he wore a white coat, held stethoscopes, and told scared children, "You'll be okay." But dreams don't fill stomachs, and hope doesn't shelter you from the rain. Still, every morning Liam woke up with the same thought. Maybe today I'll help someone who needs me. He had no idea that on this particular day fate would lead him to the passenger seat of a black car, where a little girl with silent eyes waited for a miracle no one believed possible. Liam's greatest treasure wasn't food or a blanket or even his secret stash of coins. It was that ragged old notebook. To anyone else it looked like trash, but to him it was everything. He called it his Book of Fixes. It held the names of those he wanted to help, the things he observed, the suffering he couldn't ignore. Some names were crossed out, some circled. Each scribble was a silent promise. One day, I'll make you better. He spent his days moving from street corner to alleyway, watching people, listening. The world called him invisible, but Liam saw more than anyone realized. He watched the way an old woman coughed when she walked by the bakery every morning. He noticed the man on the bench with yellowing eyes, who hadn't stood up in days. These weren't strangers to him. They were stories waiting to be healed. One day, while wandering through the back of a grocery store, he heard soft whimpers. Behind a stack of cardboard boxes was a puppy, its leg twisted unnaturally, eyes full of pain. Liam didn't hesitate. He knelt beside the creature, whispered something only he could hear, and placed his hands gently on its leg. A tingling spread through his fingers. He didn't know why it happened, only that it did. The dog stopped crying. A minute later it stood, wobbled, and then walked away, tail wagging. Liam sat there, stunned, not because he didn't believe it, but because a piece of him always had. That night, under the bridge, he held the notebook against his chest and smiled for the first time in days. Maybe I do have something inside me, he thought. Something real. He began to see himself differently, not just a street kid, but someone with purpose. He imagined himself in a clinic, maybe even a hospital. People in white coats walking past, a child crying, and him stepping in, calm and gentle, saying, "Don't worry, I can help." It was a fragile dream, but it burned bright. Liam knew it wouldn't be easy. He knew the world wouldn't open its arms to someone like him, but for the first time, he didn't feel small. He felt chosen, and he promised himself, "Someday I'll use whatever this is to help someone who truly needs it." He had no idea that that someone was already on her way. It didn't take long for Liam's hope to be tested. A week after the moment with the puppy, he found himself near the entrance of a public library. A woman, older, frail, was coughing violently as she tried to climb the steps. People passed her by, indifferent. Liam watched, heart pounding. His fingers itched with that familiar pull. "Help her." He stepped forward, clutching his notebook like a shield. "Ma'am?" he asked softly. "I can help. Just let me hold your hand." She looked down at him, confused and startled by his appearance. Dirty hair, bare feet, the smell of the streets clinging to him like a second skin. "What did you say?" she croaked, her hand on her chest. "I can make you feel better," he whispered. I just need to touch your hand, please." A nearby man heard the exchange. He was middle-aged, well-dressed, and had no patience for what he saw. "Hey, get away from her!" he shouted, rushing over. Before Liam could explain, the man shoved him hard. Liam stumbled backward, crashing onto the pavement. "He was trying to rob her!" The man barked to a growing crowd. "These street kids are all the same. Filthy little liars." The woman, confused and now frightened, said nothing. She turned and walked into the library without another word. Liam stayed on the ground, scraped and humiliated. His notebook had fallen open, pages flapping in the wind. Someone kicked it aside. He didn't fight back. He didn't cry. He just sat there, numb. That night, he didn't write anything new. He didn't even open his notebook. He lay beneath the bridge, his ribs aching, the sting of rejection cutting deeper than the bruises. What if they're right? He thought. What if I'm just a filthy kid with silly thoughts and dirty hands? What if whatever I feel, it's all in my head? The doubt dug in. Days passed. He stopped watching people, stopped hoping. The light that had started to grow inside him flickered dangerously low. He couldn't understand it. He had tried, genuinely. All he wanted was to help. Was that so wrong? The city didn't want him. The world didn't believe in him, and slowly, Liam began to stop believing in himself too. Rain had been falling for 3 days straight. Cold, relentless and cruel, just like the city. Liam hadn't eaten in nearly 48 hours. The usual corners he knew were already taken by other kids, some more aggressive, older, territorial. They pushed him away, called him weak. One even stole his last piece of bread. He wandered aimlessly, soaked to the bone, the notebook pressed tightly under his shirt to keep it dry. His fingers were cracked, skin peeling, lips blue. Every step felt heavier than the last. At nightfall, he crawled under a delivery truck behind a diner, curled into himself, and shivered uncontrollably. His breath came in shaky bursts. His chest hurt. His head spun. He was getting sick, really sick. No one noticed, no one cared. And for the first time, Liam didn't either. Maybe I wasn't supposed to help anyone. Maybe I was just meant to disappear. He thought about his mom, her tired eyes, the way she used to stroke his hair on her good days. You've got something in you, Liam. Something good. Had that been a lie too? Tears mixed with the rain on his face as he whispered, barely audible, I just wanted to do something good before I die. The world stayed silent. Later that night, delirious with fever, he stumbled down a side street and collapsed beside a dumpster. He couldn't feel his hands anymore. His notebook slipped from under his shirt, landing in a muddy puddle. Pages soaked. Ink ran. Names vanished. Liam didn't move. He let it happen. The one thing he had, the one thing that made him feel like he had purpose, was dissolving in the water. That's when he felt a hand on his shoulder. Hey, son, you all right? It was an old man. Wrinkled face, worn-out coat, gentle voice. He knelt beside Liam, shielding him from the rain with a broken umbrella. Liam tried to speak, but couldn't. The man, Harold Bennett, lifted him slowly, murmuring, Easy now. He brought Liam into a small maintenance shed nearby, lit by a single flickering bulb. There was an old cot, a space heater, and the smell of old wood and dust. Harold wrapped him in a dry blanket, gave him half a sandwich and warm tea. Liam's hands trembled as he held the cup. You've got a fire in you, the man said quietly, as if he could see through Liam. But fire needs shelter, son. You can't burn bright if you're always out in the storm. Liam's lips quivered. I don't have anything left. Even my book is gone. Harold looked at him for a long moment, then said, If you can touch people's hearts, you don't need pages to prove it. Liam fell asleep with that sentence echoing in his fevered mind. The next morning, he was still weak, but breathing steadier. Harold gave him food for the road, patted his back gently and said, Some of us are meant to do more than survive. You'll know when it's time. Liam nodded slowly, unsure if he believed it, but deeply needing to. He left without the notebook, but with something even more important beginning to grow inside him again. If this moment touched something inside you, take a second to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters here. Maybe you've met someone like Liam, or maybe you've been him. Let's talk. Sometimes a single comment is the start of someone else's healing. The streets hadn't changed, but something in Liam had. He walked slower now, not because he was weak, but because he was listening again, feeling again. The storm inside him had quieted just enough for a flicker of hope to return. His notebook was gone, but the names hadn't left his memory. Their faces, their pain, still lived inside him. He wandered into a quiet park one morning, his body still sore, but his mind strangely clear. Children played nearby, their laughter like a melody he hadn't heard in a long time. On the edge of the path, a small bird struggled on the ground, its wing bent at an unnatural angle. He knelt beside it slowly. No one was watching. There was no crowd, no pressure, just him, the earth, and that trembling life. Liam reached out, hesitated, then gently cupped the bird in his hands. He didn't pray. He didn't speak. He just felt. A warmth traveled through his chest, into his arms, into his fingers. The bird stopped trembling. Its tiny eyes blinked once. Then it hopped, flapped its wings, and lifted into the air. Liam didn't move. He just watched, mouth open, eyes wide. It was real, still real, and this time there was no one to mock him, no one to question what they couldn't see, only silence and wind, and a truth he could no longer deny. That night, lying beneath a dry alcove near the old library, Liam thought of his mother again. The last time he saw her, she was barefoot, high, eyes unfocused, but she'd knelt beside him, cupped his face, and said with unusual clarity, You're not here just to survive, Liam. You're here to fix what others can't. He didn't understand it back then. But now it meant something. He wasn't meant to prove himself. He wasn't meant to beg people to believe. He just had to be willing to try, even if it meant being rejected again, even if it meant falling again. The next morning, Liam stood outside a crowded clinic. He didn't go in. He didn't need to. He simply waited, watched, And when someone limped past or held their chest in pain, he offered what little he had, a glance, a presence, a hand. Most ignored him, but not all. And every time someone did stop, something happened. Small, subtle, but real. Liam Carter was no longer chasing his purpose. He had found it. Liam didn't know her name, just that she worked the morning shift at the clinic and always wore her dark hair in a tight bun. She had kind eyes and a voice that never raised, even when the waiting room was filled with noise and stress. She noticed him on the third day. He was sitting on the curb outside the clinic again, holding the hand of a coughing boy whose mother was frantically filling out paperwork. Liam had simply placed his hand on the boy's shoulder, quietly, without saying a word. The boy's cough slowed, then stopped. Nurse Grace Thompson stood in the doorway watching. Later that afternoon, when Liam returned with no intention of entering, she called out to him, "Hey, kid, come here." He froze, expecting to be told to leave, but her tone was gentle. "What's your name?" "Liam. You've been coming around a lot. You helping people?" He hesitated, unsure what to say. I feel when they're hurting. I try to make it stop." Grace didn't laugh. She didn't frown. She just nodded slowly, then opened the side door. "You can sit in the hallway, just don't get in the way." That hallway became his new world. He sat quietly, unnoticed by most, but present. People passed him, limping, crying, clutching their stomachs. Liam didn't interfere unless someone looked at him directly, unless they seemed truly open. A girl with an asthma attack, a man with joint pain, a baby with colic. He never claimed he healed them, but sometimes they smiled after he touched their hand. Sometimes their pain lessened. Sometimes it stopped. Grace started bringing him food, a sandwich here, a juice box there. She never asked too many questions, but she started keeping an eye on him, even slipping him a clean shirt one morning, without saying a word. For the first time in years, Liam felt like he belonged somewhere. He didn't sleep outside the clinic. He didn't want to overstay his welcome. But each morning, he returned, sat in his corner, listened, watched, helped. The clinic became a sanctuary. Not just because of Grace, but because Liam was finally being allowed to do what he'd always believed he could. He was still invisible to most, but not to everyone, and that was enough. Because Liam wasn't looking for a stage. He was looking for someone who needed him. Not everyone welcomed him. Dr. Stephen Miles, one of the senior physicians at the clinic, had no patience for strays, especially not ones sitting silently in hallways, watching patients with wide, curious eyes. He confronted Grace one afternoon, his tone clipped and cold. "Why is there a homeless kid sitting outside exam rooms? This isn't a shelter." Grace, calm as always, replied, "He's not hurting anyone. He's helped more than you know." Dr. Miles scoffed. "Placebo? Coincidence? Whatever it is, I don't want him here. Liability." Liam overheard. The words stung more than he expected. For a moment he considered not coming back, but that night, as he lay curled up behind a bookstore, he remembered Harold's words. "Some of us are meant to do more than survive." So he returned the next morning. Grace didn't say anything, but when she passed him, she handed him a small pack of crackers. It was her quiet way of saying, "You're still welcome." That same day, Liam saw her, the girl in the wheelchair, Emily Sullivan. She wasn't at the clinic. She was on the sidewalk, waiting beside a sleek black car. Liam recognized the man standing next to her immediately. It was Richard Sullivan, the famous real estate mogul. He'd seen his face on a billboard once. Liam froze. Emily looked tired, not physically, but emotionally. Her hands rested in her lap, unmoving. Her eyes wandered but never focused. Something pulled Liam forward. He approached cautiously, heart pounding, unsure what to say, unsure if he even should. But when he reached them, she turned and met his gaze, and something passed between them. No words, just recognition, not of each other but of pain, of stillness, of waiting. Then, instinctively, Liam whispered, "Sir, may I help your daughter walk again?" Richard turned sharply, startled. His first instinct was to push the boy away. But Emily placed her hand on her father's. "Please," she said softly, "let him." Richard hesitated, torn between disbelief and the small voice in his heart that had been begging for a miracle ever since the accident. Liam stood silently, hands at his sides, eyes steady. He wasn't selling anything. He wasn't promising anything. He was just offering. And for the first time in his life, someone with everything was about to give him a chance. Richard hesitated, his hand protectively hovering near Emily's shoulder. He studied Liam, this thin boy with sunken cheeks and barefoot resolve, searching for a sign of deception. But Liam didn't flinch, he didn't fidget, he simply waited, eyes locked on Emily, like he had all the time in the world. Finally, Richard stepped aside. Emily looked up at Liam, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can you really help me?" "I don't know," Liam answered honestly, "but I want to try." She nodded, and Liam knelt beside her wheelchair. He didn't touch her right away. He closed his eyes first, not to pray, but to listen, to feel that strange, warm pull deep inside him that always guided his hands when words weren't enough. Then, gently, he placed his palms over her knees. Nothing happened for a moment. The street noise buzzed around them, cars passing, horns honking, people murmuring. Richard shifted uncomfortably, regret already forming behind his tired eyes. And then Emily inhaled sharply. "Dad," Richard leaned down. "What is it?" "I feel something. Warm, like inside my legs. It's weird." Her fingers twitched. Liam didn't move. His eyes were still closed, his face calm, almost peaceful. Emily's voice rose, trembling with something that sounded dangerously like hope. "I can feel my toes. I haven't felt my toes since the accident." A woman nearby gasped. Richard stared in disbelief as Emily placed her hands on the armrests of the wheelchair. She pushed, slowly, awkwardly. The chair creaked. Then she stood, wobbly, shaking, but standing. The air around them changed. It was as if everything else on the street fell silent. Phones rose into the air, recording. A group of teenagers stopped in their tracks. A barista inside the cafe dropped her tray. Emily took one step, then another. Tears poured down Richard's face, unstoppable, unchecked. He covered his mouth with both hands and dropped to his knees beside her. "Oh my God, Emily." She looked at him, smiling for the first time in months. "I'm standing, Daddy. I'm really standing." Liam stepped back slowly, eyes wide, not with pride, but awe. He hadn't expected this, not like this. Richard turned to him, still crying, still disoriented. Who are you?" "I don't know," Liam said. "Just someone who wants people to stop hurting." And then, just like that, he turned and walked away. The crowd began to gather around Emily and Richard, all wanting to know what had happened, who the boy was. But Liam didn't stay to explain. He didn't need applause. He didn't want recognition. He just wanted to help. Back on the sidewalk around the corner, he paused for one last look. Emily was standing, her arms wrapped around her father's neck. People were filming, crying, clapping. But Liam smiled. Not for them. For her. She was standing. And for the first time in his life, he knew exactly who he was. The videos spread across the internet like wildfire. Homeless boy heals paralyzed girl on the street. Miracle or mystery? The boy with healing hands. Richard Sullivan's name came up in every headline, but he refused interviews. He wasn't interested in fame. Not this time. What mattered to him wasn't what the world thought. It was what he had seen with his own eyes. But Liam was gone. He had vanished into the city, just as quietly as he had appeared. No one knew his last name. No one knew where he slept. Richard hired private investigators, not to expose him, but to thank him, to help him, to give him something in return. In the weeks that followed, Richard began to change. He started visiting shelters, places he had driven past his entire life without a second thought. He made donations, yes. But more than that, he listened, he learned names, he shook hands, he cried sometimes. He even created a foundation named after his daughter, the Emily Project, focused on helping children in extreme poverty with medical needs and support. But more than resources, it was about dignity, about hope. He didn't say it publicly, but every choice he made was guided by one invisible presence, the boy with nothing who gave him everything. It took nearly 2 years, 2 years of searching, asking questions, following the faintest leads. And then one day, Richard found him. Liam was 17 now, taller, still thin but stronger. He wore second-hand scrubs and stood beside a hospital bed in a small free clinic in Oakland, gently placing a hand on a patient's shoulder. He didn't see Richard walk in. He was too focused, too present. When Liam finally turned and saw him, he froze. Richard didn't speak at first. He just stepped forward and pulled him into a hug. "You changed everything," he whispered. "You changed me." Liam didn't cry. He hadn't in years, but his voice broke when he said, "I'm just trying to do what I was made for." From that moment on, Liam became part of their family, not in name, but in love. Richard supported his education, his dream of becoming a doctor, never asking for anything in return. Emily visited often. She was walking now, fully recovered, studying to become a physical therapist. She said it was her way of honoring the gift she'd been given. Liam never claimed to be a miracle. He just kept doing the work, quietly, humbly. And in doing so, he healed far more than he ever knew. Sometimes the people we're taught to ignore are the ones who carry the greatest light. Liam never wanted recognition. He never chased headlines. He only wanted to ease someone's pain, even if no one ever knew his name. But his choice, to act when others looked away, changed lives. And now, we ask you, if a barefoot boy on a sidewalk offered hope, would you believe him? Would you stop long enough to listen? There are Liams all around us, quiet souls, invisible helpers, people who carry goodness in silence. What would happen if we chose to see them? Tell us in the comments, would you have let Liam touch your daughter's hand? Let's talk about it. Let's honor the unseen. If this story moved you, share it. Subscribe for more real stories of pain, hope, and transformation. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people who choose to care, especially when no one else will.